In this lesson, we're going to continue breaking up the different pieces of our bridge and then also add in any static rigid bodies that we need for our dynamics. Okay, so let's go ahead and modify these rails right here in the middle. And I don't want to make exact copies of these rails and bring them over to this side. Okay, I don't want to do that. I want to make them as random as possible. Okay, so let's go to polygon mode, hit F3, and that polygon is already selected for me, so if you need to, just select that bottom one. Let's hit F3, and let's just raise this up in the Z. And remember, we want this right above that top surface, okay, right above the bridge there. Let's go to polygon mode, select our next one, and I'll do the same thing here. And again, that's still selected for me, so I'm going to pull that up in the Z. And just rest that right on top of the bridge there. All right. Okay, so both of those are there. Now, on this one, we're going to have to modify this, but we're also going to have to adjust its shape as well. So I'm going to do that right now, seeing how we're going to have to do it anyway. So let's just go to polygon mode, and that bottom polygon is selected, I can already tell, and if it's not, just select it. And let's pull this up in our Z direction. That's already set. Let's go to edge mode. I'm going to select one of these edges and hit ring, and let's do a connect. Okay, I'm going to slide this over right to this point where our ramp begins on our bridge. So it looks like about -51, and I'm going to hit OK. Let's go to edge mode and let's grab this corner and pull this straight down in the Z and to where it rests right on the bridge. Okay, it looks like we've got a little bit of a gap, and it may be something that we have to adjust, but it should rest right on top. That's looking good. Alright, now what I'm going to do is take this one and just delete it, and let's just hold down Shift and copy this over into the Y. There we go. Hit OK. Get that lined up the best you can. Okay. We do have a little bit of a gap right here, and I did want that ledge there. And I'll leave that there. Let's take these two. Let's delete those. Select our two ends. And let's mirror these. Let's make these copies and hit OK. Now I'm mirroring these in the X direction. I'll hit OK. Pull this over. And just position these to where they rest perfectly on the bridge. Pull this back over in the X a little bit. There we go. All right. So we've got those pieces set up there. We're ready to go ahead and start fracturing those. So let's go to Max Script, Run Script, and go to the Fracture Voronoi fracture script, and let's open that up. And in this dialog box, we need to go ahead and pick our object. So let's just select this front one here. And I'm going to break this up into about 50 pieces again. So once we have our number of parts set, let's check our material IDs. Everything looks good. Let's change that color, and let's go ahead and just keep with that green color for all of our rails. It's going to make it a lot easier. Now let's make sure that these are true green, so that way we can check, select all of those by that one color. We have uniform, and let's go to volume cell center. Let's break into 50, and just wait for that to go ahead and break, and there we go. Let's continue this pattern for the rest of these rails, so let's pick that 50, change that color to that green, and we have true green, and break into 50. Pick this next rail, change it to green, and break into 50. And again, make sure you're checking to make sure that that is actually true green. Okay, let's pick our next rail, true green, and 0 on red, 0 on blue. Okay, break into 50, and let's do these final two. Now, before I pan over, I always want to make sure that I let that break first, because I don't want 3ds Max to crash on me. Let's pick this rail, 50, change that color to green, and let's do 0 on our blue, and hit OK. Break into 50. Select this next one. That color to green. And hit OK. Break into 50. Okay, so let's close this out. Let's do Edit, Select By, Color. And now we have all of these selected. And we know that we've already set some of these to dynamic, and some of them are not. Okay, so let's go ahead and just set all of these to dynamic again. So let's just click on Select, or Set Selected as Dynamic Rigid Body. Some of these are already set to original, okay, and that's okay. Let's bring up our Mass Effects tools. Let's go to Edit. Start in Sleep Mode is already checked. Okay, so we may have to go ahead and just take all of these and unselect those. But it's kind of actually, it's a little misleading because this is grayed out. We kind of think that we can't actually uncheck this, but we can. So uncheck that and then recheck it. So now everything is set to start in sleep mode. Whenever it's that darker gray, that just means that some of these are set to start in sleep mode and some are not. Okay? So just uncheck it and then recheck it. Let's go to our preset and go to concrete. And then we'll go to our physical mesh type, and you'll see that there's nothing here. And the reason that there's nothing there is because some of these are set to original and some are at convex. So let's set all of these to original. And now you'll see original in that section there. Okay, same thing with concrete. Let's close this. And what we want to do is go ahead and start our simulation. Just to test. Okay, things begin to crumble. You'll see that inertia or kinetic energy is kind of traveling to these different rails. And they bump into one another, and they're all connected, so they're all going to crumble because rigid bodies, once they touch one, it starts a chain reaction. So we're going to get this kind of reaction or result out of this. Now, we don't want all of this to crumble as soon as one rock or something like that touches it. Okay, we want certain pieces to crumble. We're setting up our dynamic scene that we want for our specific shot. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop this simulation and reset this simulation. And what we're going to do is actually begin to set up some of our static rigid bodies for some of these pieces to actually hold still. So let's deselect all of those. And what I'm going to do is actually go to my front view. And we kind of talked about the plan that we had. I know that I want this bridge right here to just be completely demolished. And I want this one to be partially demolished here. And the rails are going to kind of follow along in that sense. And the ends, like here, are going to be untouched. So I'm actually going to set these ends, select both of those. I'm going to set these to static. So click and hold on your rigid body type and set those to static. So now these can actually affect dynamic rigid bodies, but will not be moved. Okay, just like our ground plane. Let's go ahead and grab our select tool, and let's select some of these rigid bodies in here. Okay, and I'm going to select part of these. Let's deselect these objects right here, and I'm just wanting to select parts of this bridge. Hold down Control, and I'm going to just select some of these. Hold down Alt, deselect the bridge and the ground and all of that. Okay, and I'm actually going to deselect everything in the rails I just want this bridge. So it's a good idea to go ahead and go to perspective view, just kind of inspect what you have selected. Okay. And I can come in here and alt click some of these different pieces on the back side because I don't want it to look symmetrical from one side to the other. Okay. So I'll deselect some of these to have these actually crumble along the back and some of these to kind of stay static. So with these selected, let's change these to static rigid body, and I'm actually going to do this in the Mass Effects tools. Okay, so let's go to Edit. Let's switch these over to static. We can uncheck Start in Sleep Mode, or we can just keep it the way it is, and I'm okay with just leaving it in sleep mode. Okay, we have preset to concrete, and our physical mesh is going to be the original. So let's close this out. Let's do a test on this, see what it looks like. So start simulation. You'll see that it begins to crumble, and these pieces that we have selected are not being moved. Okay, so they're not being affected by dynamics. Okay, but they are affecting these dynamic rigid bodies. So you'll see that some of these are pretty much just staying right on top because they're resting on these static rigid bodies. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and stop our simulation. And I still have these selected, and what I want to do is actually create a selection set for these selected ones. So I'm going to call this bridge underscore main 01 underscore 01, and then I'm going to do underscore static. So that way I can reselect those if I need to. Okay. Now, if you need to reselect those, we can just go up to our drop-down box and select that. You'll see that it creates that selection. All right. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for this side, but we want less. So what I'm actually going to do is go to Edit, select by color. Let's select the blue color there. And what I'm going to do is hold down Alt and deselect what I don't want to be static. So that way all that's left is selected is going to be my static objects. Hold down Alt, and I'll just start clicking on some of these just to kind of break up a little bit of the randomness here. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Happy with that. And let's go ahead and set these to static. Now we can go ahead and click on static here and it'll change those over. Let's check our Mass Effects tools because I always like to double check all of my options. So those are set to static, concrete, and original. Okay. Let's make a selection set for these. So we'll call this bridge underscore main underscore 02 underscore static and hit enter. All right, let's go ahead and test this simulation, just kind of see what we've got so far. Okay, bridge begins to crumble, and it crumbles a little more slowly. We have pieces along the back that are beginning to fly up there, and that's just because of the kinetic energy. And that's the type of reaction that I'm looking for, is something really strong to hit my bridge and then to cause it to just completely fall apart. Now, it kind of looks like I'm having the opposite effect of what I was actually looking for in this scene. I wanted this one to crumble partially, and I wanted this one to crumble completely, and it kind of looks like it's doing the opposite here. So I might go ahead and go with what it has here. I'm going to actually add in a couple more static objects in here, and the ones that I actually want to keep, okay, kind of going across here. And we'll set that up in our next lesson. We're running a little bit long here. So in our next lesson, we're going to continue breaking our pieces together, and we're going to get exactly what we want out of our bridge. So we're kind of moving on into fine-tuning our dynamics for what we want for our shot. So let's stop this simulation, and I'll see you in the next lesson.